The circuit, Ricardo Tormo, just outside Valencia. Tension absolutely at fever pitch, and it's going to be tight wherever you look. 14 turns knitted into just 4 kilometers, all tight, compact, twisting around. It's going to be super critical. Brands Hatch last time out the second race, led away by Raffaele Marcello Marango, challenging from the outside, very tight as the pack dived into Paddock Hill Bend. It looked as though everyone was going through smoothly, but then Benja Ites given a bit of a shove by a fellow Ferrari driver and put into the gravel. Marcello continued to lead at the front of the race, but it was very tight, and there was further contact going down into Surtees for the first time. And unfortunately, Klaus Bachler up the inside of one of the Attempto Racing Audis. And before that was out, Adam Christodoulou tipped into a spin as well. Arthur Rougier doing the pushing, and the Ram Racing Mercedes into the gravel on the outside. But behind, it was nip and tuck. It was looking for position around this classic Grand Prix circuit. Up at Druids, often an overtaking possibility, but they're all nice and clean. And then came the pit stops. Timing would be critical. Important not to slip out, most certainly for Dries van Tor, who got out of the championship leading Audi and handed it to his teammate Charles Weerts, who was immediately on the attack as he went back out onto the circuit and pushed very hard indeed by Luca Stolz. But it was a fierce one, but the Audi just kept in front despite severe provocation from the outside, held the inside line there and kept onto position. But out front was still the 88 Mercedes. Timo Bogoslawski had taken it over, and the pressure was coming on him, onto the Russian as the race went towards its conclusion. Plenty of pressure from behind. Stolz in there. Up at Druids again, more action. There's the Sky Tempesta Racing Ferrari trying to take a move. And again, the classic circuit cars bouncing over the curbing. That's at Westfield. Then the drop down into Dingeldale. But the action at the front, it was Bogoslawski. Severe pressure from Stolz, and in behind, Weerts as well. And on the final lap, halfway around, suddenly Bogoslawski slowed. It turns out he had a puncture. So Stolz into the lead, heading off to take his second win of the year, second place and the title, going to Dries van Tor and Charles Weerts. And for Timo Bogoslawski, what disappointment. He'd come through into the background of the shot any moment now, and he didn't complete with 4 wheels on his car, because there it goes, the carcass is off, dribbling into 6th place. Huge disappointment, but no disappointment at Team WRT. The title is theirs. For Dries van Tor and Charles Weerts, they already wrapped up the Sprint Cup title at Brands Hatch a few weeks ago, but they want to end the season on a massive high and carry their form from the Sprint Cup over to the final at Barcelona to see if they can add the Endurance Trophy as well.
To end up on a high, we have not the pressure we had compared to last year, for example, but it's nice. It's a nice feeling. We can just come here and enjoy what we do and try to do our best. But like I said, we still want to end up on a high, so we still want to try and win.
New track, I guess, for a lot of people here. But at the end of the day, the objective remains the same. We want to win the maximum races and to have some podium, as you said. So regardless of the fact we are already champion, we still want to do the best. And the good thing is that we don't have any pressure on us.
The Silver Cup battle is going to be a fierce one at the final round, and Juuso Pohaka and Oscar Tunja, who've been going really, really well all season for TopSport WRT in their black Mercedes. They come here third on points, and they're tilting, hoping and praying that they can end with the big one in Spain.
We come here to Valencia with still title hopes, which is pretty nice. I think we managed to have quite a hard start of the year, and we managed to get back into the rhythm and get into the points again. So yeah, we will fight here hard, and hopefully with some Spanish and Colombian fans, we can have some good weekend, and let's try to finish the best we can.
In Valencia, here you have plenty of overtaking opportunities. Turn 2 is quite good, then the hard braking turn 7, and then the tight section in the second sector, and then for sure last corner is an opportunity. So it will be good fighting here, I'm sure.
Alex Fontana arrives at Valencia with a healthy points lead in the Silver Cup. He knows he's got to keep it on the straight and narrow.
Well, I believe we did a solid job so far. I'm standing alone at the top of the standings, but to be fair, it's something I didn't make myself. I had Arthur Rougier in the first event in Manicure that we did well together in a very last-minute call, and then for most of the season, Ricardo Feller. So I'm alone in points technically, but in theory, it was always a teamwork from the beginning. So I believe we had a solid package. We showed that we can be competitive in silver and in overhaul. And as we spoke together in Nürburgring, I said that we should fight for the overhaul first, and then the silver will get a good result as well. So I believe here we are going to do the same, trying to be as good as possible in the overhaul classification, and that will theoretically mean that we are doing well in the silver class as well.
Frank Bird is second in the Silver Cup. He and his teammate Riachiro Tomita have had class wins at Misano and Brands Hatch. He's looking for glory here in Spain.
We've got a little bit of a possibility where we're not really looking into it too much, not putting too much pressure on ourselves. We're just going to do the best job we can really and try and replicate the good weekend we had in Brands Hatch. Everything's going down to the last round and the last race, so hopefully we can do a good job and we can come out on top.
Enrique Chavez and Miguel Ramos hope to continue in their fine form in the Pro-Am class after taking a double at Brands Hatch in their Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini, and that brings them here to Spain with a 14-point advantage and 35 points to play for. It's all going to happen here.
It was a perfect weekend, double pole, double win, so now we have a 14-point lead, so let's see how Valencia is for us. Hopefully it's a good track for us and we clinch the title, but let's see, we still a lot of work to do.
I've been here several times. The last time was 6 years ago, but still I know well. I think it will be a nice weekend for us.
Alexander West and Johnny Adam are the outside Pro-Am title shots in their Garage 59 Aston Martin Vantage after taking one win in class and 5 other podium positions through the course of the year in the 8 races so far. But they must beat the Barwell crew to take the title.
Obviously this weekend's final weekend for sprint, and it's all to play for really with the championship, so we really need to put extra pressure on Barwell and see what we could do. But it's been a good season, we've been consistent, but this weekend maximum attack and see if we can capture that championship at the end of on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, this is the first year I'm doing the sprint championship, so that's been a new experience, which has been a lot of fun. I used to do shorter races, I like doing the endurance racing, but it's fun doing the shorter sprint races. So we'll see. We'll certainly, as Donny said, we'll give everything we can this weekend and see how far that takes us.
As we get to the penultimate race of the season, 7 manufacturers still taking a tilt at overall honours in the Fanatec GT World Challenge powered by AWS. Let's take a look at how the points sit as we approach the racing here at Valencia. And leading the way, it's Mercedes, 13,228 points. Second is Lamborghini, and currently third, Audi on 9,897. It's a beautiful sunny morning at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo outside Valencia for the final round of the 2021 Fanatec GT World Challenge Sprint Series. My name is Bruce Jones, I'm joined by John Watson, and it's a much brighter scene greeting us today than it was on Friday when we arrived.
Absolutely glorious. It's a little bit fresher than it was over the previous 2 days. You can see the sky's absolutely clear as anything. Got a lovely freshly washed racetrack, which is a tradition in some of the Latin countries, and cars waiting on the grid for this first of the 2 one-hour sprint races to get underway.
27 cars coming out to play, and it's going to be McLaren on pole position, Ben Barnicoat delivering, and certainly it's such a technical circuit, John. He's on the front row alongside Luca Stoltz. That's Luca Stoltz's car. Great to have the manufacturer variety, which really seems to be strong here. We arrived on Friday and Mercedes seemed to be dominating, but we've got a great mix, and with the McLaren on pole position, it's good to go and catch up with the driver from pole position car. His name is Ben Barnicoat.
Ben, just seen under the mask, you are all smiles. Feeling good about this pole position?
Yeah, managed to keep it this time, which is good. A bit unlike Brands Hatch. So yeah, just full focus on getting my head down. And the inside of turn 1 looks a little bit wet from watching the Formula Renaults this morning. So could be interesting on the run down there next to Luca. But I'll just do my best and hand it over to Ollie in the best position possible.
Yeah, we've had big storms overnight here, haven't we? So
yeah, massive.
Still a little bit of dampness around the track, you think?
Yeah, that's it on the outlap there, just getting a couple of sighting laps, seeing a couple of puddles and stuff, so got all that in the brain, ready for the first lap when we hit it at full speed. But yeah, it's the same for everyone. I'm just unfortunately most likely going to be the first one to hit it and lead the way, but it is what it is, just do my best and like I said, hand it to Ollie in the best position I can.
Absolutely, well done. We'll
Thank you.
See what happens.
See you later. Enjoy.
Well, Ben Barnicoat at Brands Hatch, he stormed away in that first race. And unfortunately, in the second half, his teammate Ollie Wilkinson ended up crashing out of the race. But the pace that car had, but what he did at Brands Hatch was put it in front and let those behind slow each other down by fighting.
Yeah, very much the case that once the McLaren got the lead, he was off and running. And then there was a stack of cars being just all the way down through the field from that second down away to 10th position. And there was no way around. One of the difficulties that we have at Brands and other circuits is the closeness and competitiveness of the field is such that there are really so few opportunities for a clean overtake.
Well, it could be very much the same here. But let's go across the other side of the front row to a driver who came away with victory from Brands Hatch. His name is Mauro Engel.
Mauro, it was so nearly a TalkSport front row yesterday. You held that pole position for almost the whole session, just pipped at the post by Ben. But still, front row, and the teammates just behind you as well.
Yeah, great session you know, for both Luca and Oscar yesterday. I think they both put really strong laps in, and just McLaren was a little bit too fast for us in that session. But overall, a great place to start, and looking forward to the race, yeah.
Absolutely. We were just talking to Ben, and he's talking about a few wet patches around the circuit.
Yeah, obviously it rained really heavily overnight or last night, and I think some sections are still. Tarmac here is quite deep, what we refer to as macro, you know, really deep sections, and then the humidity just stays in there. But I think with the sun, it should hopefully dry out quickly.
It's a bit cooler than yesterday as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a different track, so I think different for everyone. So hopefully it'll suit us, and then we can do a good race.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Interesting to hear from Mauro, as always, but what might get lost in Mr. Time was the number 6 car was all over the place yesterday until they got to qualifying. They were struggling like mad, couldn't work out what was wrong with the car. Clearly they got it sorted. Their teammate, the sister car that's qualified third, always was on the pace, but it was a concerning time.
Well, they had problems identifying the problems. We had even bigger ones in the commentary booth because you weren't getting the feedback telling us what the problem was. But at the same time, one might suspect that the TalkSport motor team were splitting the workload between the two cars, and the number 6 was getting the race kind of set up so that when we go into these 1 hour sprint races, they know precisely what they need to do to get both cars onto the podium. But it was certainly confusing to us to see that number 6 with Lucas Stoltz and Mauro Engel lingering in terms of overall pace right down at the very bottom of the timing and scorings, and then in qualifying they leap forward onto the front row of the grid.
Yeah, but all along the sister car, the black one, number 7, was running well. It was on the pace. It's the leading car in the Silver Cup class. It's going to start this race from 3rd overall, so it's looking really, really strong. But we're talking of the various classes. The driver leaving the Silver Cup class is Alex Fontana.
Alex, the fight is on this weekend. This is the decider for the championship.
Yeah, absolutely, and it shows once again how much the Silver Cup has increased its level in the years, and we can see in the past few events many changes of position at the top in qualifying and then in the race among, I would say, 5 or 6 Silver Cup cars, and we are right in the pack of the overhaul cars as well, so it's going to be interesting, I would say.
Often when I've talked to you throughout the year, we talk about the Silver Cup Championship and how important that is, but you always place the overall championship as in your sights.
Yeah, because not only us, but other lineups as well have proven, especially in the Sprint Cup, that it's possible to do well in the overall standings. And in the past, I sometimes realized that thinking too much about your own class not always pays off, especially when you are in the middle of the pack, because everybody is trying to save themselves, basically, in the first few laps. And if you try to look only at your competitors in class, you maybe lose even more position, because the overall cars are trying to overtake you even harder, because they know that you are not supposed to be in front of them. So at the same time, in this, especially the starting procedures, it's better you attack, and then obviously without causing damages. And then after that, maybe later in the race, you can play off, think about a bit more about the class and the Silver Cup.
And you'll be taking that later stint?
Yeah, we'll join after Ricardo. Is something we have already done many times this season, so he was doing quali 1 and starting race 1. Let's see what he can do, and depending where he's gonna finish with safety cars and so on, or if we have a clean race, I will decide what is gonna be my strategy after the pit stop. Okay.
Look forward to seeing it. Thank you. Have a good race.
So there is Alex Fontana leading the Silver Cup and 5th overall in the overall. And overall, it's 167.5 points. That's a massive margin for Dries Van Toor and Charles Weerts. They've got that in the bag, and Raffaele Marcello second in that. But it's excellence across both of those championships that's put Vantor and Weerts at the top of the pile for Team WRT with their Audi. And just to let you know where Alex Fontana's car is starting from on the grid, it's not really the middle of the pack. He's starting from 7th place overall. But there he is, top of the silver sprint points by a big margin. But we mentioned Dries Vantor, and we conjure up an interview. There is Dries down on the grid waiting to talk.
Dries, not quite where we'd expect to see you. Has it been a bit of a struggle for the Audis this weekend?
Well, could say so, I think. Well, there was one Audi up front, that's good. But for the second race, it's been tough for us. But let's see what we can do. It's still anything can happen in the race. Never know. It's not easy to overtake here, so we'll have to wait and see. But it's been a bit of a struggle.
But I guess the pressure's off for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, because I think if we would have come in the weekend like this, we would have had a very hard time. So let's hope for the future it changes.
Thank you. Have a good race.
Thank you.
Well, that's the pressure is off. Of course, he's already got the sprint title with 4 wins from the 8 races so far, but it's going to be hard today. Now, the Pro-Am battle, it's Miguel Ramos, Enrique Chavez for the Barwell Lamborghini team, sitting with a 13.5-point advantage. And got to nurse that through the course of the 2 races here today. Ezequiel Perez-Companc, looking at his car down on the grid, as crazy as ever, the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes, but from their point of view, it's been quick all weekend. Ezequiel will start the race from 6th overall, and Rick Breukers, the Dutch racer, who's been very quick indeed, will be taking over for the second part of the race. But what we heard from various drivers, it's going to be really hard, John, to overtake here at the circuit. 14 turns, twisting their way around the slope opposite the pits, but it's tricky.
Yes, and listening to what Dries Vantor was saying, that's all based on the running they had here on Friday and then on Saturday. But it's a totally different day today. Temperatures, track temperatures, everything is brand new to the team. So what they're going to face when they start this 1-hour sprint race is virtually a racetrack that's been washed by the rain and whatever else happened to fall around the racetrack over the last 24 hours. So the track is very much more green than it would have been over the previous 2 days. So it's going to be a sort of a voyage of adventure for these Sprint 1 competitors. And then they'll come in, hand over between 25 and 35 minutes to go for the mandatory pit stops. So everybody's going to find, well, we've been out, done an exploratory lap, some have maybe done 2, but it doesn't really tell you what's going to happen. And because the track is being washed, that's going to have a bearing on how your tires react to that fresher, cleaner track surface. So really, while you might look and say at the grid, well, it's a walk-in for the Jota McLaren or for the number 6 Mercedes, we don't know. And that's the beauty of all this. It's all going to be new ground for everybody.
One thing I found very interesting that Ben Barnicot was saying, there were puddles on the circuit. I didn't notice it when the previous session was out there, but often you can feel as though there's a puddle just because the track is a little bit, well, just doesn't have the grip, but he can feel it through the tyres of the car.
Certainly you can see going to turn 1, just about on the entry line into turn 1, there's a damp patch. Where there will be water retained will be on a lot of the curbing, and of course here, as a very much a motorcycle racetrack, the curbing is very flat, and the water that fell, if it hasn't evaporated, will be retained in some of those little ridges that form the curbing that demarcates the racetrack from getting a penalty. So that's going to be an area where drivers need to be a little bit cautious. And if you catch one of those on a set of slick tires when that is still very slippery, that again is something you need to be conscious of and not just assume because it wasn't a problem on Friday or Saturday, it isn't going to be a problem this morning.
One of the cars we were just looking at, down 10th on the grid, Ulysses Depot racing the CMR Bentley. And what we saw down the start-finish straight, the highest speed achieved by the Bentleys time and time again. Obviously, to balance it all out, they're probably not as good in other twisty parts of the track, but it is still a feature of them, and it may give them a chance to overtake.
It's certainly got an advantage. 256.58 kilometres per hour was the top speed going into turn 1. And that was about a 4-kilometre gain over the majority of the field. But of course it depends how quickly, for example, you come off the final turn onto the straight rather than your top speed. So top speed in itself on a straight of this length probably hasn't got the value, let's say, would have had at Spa-Francorchamps up the long straight up into Les Combes.
So here's the view from the back of the grid. We've got a formation lap to go following the Audi course car around the circuit. And looking down the grid, it's a McLaren on pole position, then 2 Mercedes, an Audi, another Mercedes, a Lamborghini. That's the one with Alex Fontana taking over in the second part of the race. And then Charles Weerts will be kicking off the first of the Audi. So let's take a look as the cars go around the circuit. It's a beautiful sunny morning at the circuit Ricardo Tormo, just outside Valencia. And it looks dry when you look down from the high. That's the view taken down from the top of the control tower, 6 stories. Great view. Is that Aston Martin not moving because it's not moving? No, it's moving from the tail end of the grid. That is 188. And the car that will start last will be Benjamin Goether's number 30 Team WRT Audi that didn't end up with the time. But let's take a look at the grid. Ben Barnicoat in his McLaren will start alongside Lucas Stoltz on the front row. He will be on the left-hand side as the cars go down to turn 1. Then the top Silver Cup runners, Oscar Tunjo and Dennis Marshall, who really shone in his attempt to racing Audi, form row 2. Timo Bogoslawski and Ezekiel Perez-Companc, all Mercedes, third row of the grid. Then Ricardo Feller, he leads the Silver Cup. He will start from 7th. Charles Weerts, he's already got the championship in his pocket. He will be 8th. Konstantin Tereshchenko in his ACA Mercedes and Ulysses Depot in his CMR Bentley. They form the 5th row. Then comes Norbert Siedler, Emil Racing Lamborghini, and Leo Russell, the Santalot Racing Audis, flattered to deceive. Monster Lapalainen, this is where we find the bulk of the Lamborghinis. He starts 13. Aurelien Panis, the 2nd of the Santalot Racing Audis. Then the 3rd of the Mercedes from ACA ASP, Petro Umarescu, and Thomas Tuchler, the Garage 59 Aston Martin. Chris Froggatt, he's been going well this meeting. He's sharing with Eddie Cheever again in his Sky Tempesta Racing Ferrari, and Stefan Richelme in the 2nd of the Bentleys. Then Adrian Delina back in the Dynamic Motorsport Porsche. Valentin Pierberg, who's trying to take a tilt for Pro-Am honours. Louis Michiels also in that Pro-Am mix. Julian Apostolos in the Allied Racing Porsche. Then Barwell Motorsports Pro-Am leader Miguel Ramos. Frank Bird for Team WRT. The penultimate row of the grid, Kiko Galbiati joining the Sprint Cup this weekend, starts 25th. Alexander West looking for Pro-Am glory. He's 2nd in the championship in his 188 Aston Martin. Then Benjamin Goether, no time on the board, so starting for the back. So look for Benjamin. He should have the pace to start overtaking, picking his way up the order. He's not in those Pro-Am battles. He's got to be cautious.
Yes, he does. Obviously, it's a 27-car field, and it will all get very compacted on this opening lap. So you need to have your wits about you, and if you see gaps, well, the gap might be there when you attempt the move. You might need to be sure that it's going to be there when you're in the process of executing it. As the cars make their way around, this is looking at the exit of turn 12. It's a tight right then left, and that bit of no man's land there to the right of where we're seeing the cars come through is an area where if you continue to use, you will lose. You might get a time penalty added to your race time, or you can get a stop-go penalty. Turn 13, and this is the field really bunching up. So light is out.
Light is out. We're just about to go. So I was going to say one word. I hope it's the last time I said all meeting, but it won't be. Track limits. We'll look for those. Now, a clean start down to turn 1. It's a left-hander that feeds the field up the hill. 2 by 2 they go. 27 cars, 13 cars and 13 rows, and a bonus car at the back, Benjamin Goether. But holding that outside line, which is the inside line to the first corner, nailing it, getting his nose in front. Clean start, but it's the 2nd and 3rd rows that meld. The first 2 nice and tidy down to the first corner. It'll be Barnicoat from Stoltz, but will it be Marshall up in? No, it's an ACA Mercedes that's come through. That's Timo Bogoslawski. Good start from the Russian up to 3rd place. Will they all get around turn 1? Well, some cars in the next county, but they are all, so the 27 cars went into the corner, 27 cars came out, and the Aston Martin in the middle of the pack, but it's the McLaren leading the way, doing what he did at Brands Hatch. Ben Barnicoat making a break, and Lucas Stoltz seeing what he can do. They were helped as Oscar Tunjo got in tight with Dennis Marshall, and Bogoslawski went past the pair of them.
Yeah, Bogoslawski went down the inside into turn 1, managed to make it stick, and done a very good job indeed. Get that car up into 3rd place as the field makes its way through. This is the middle sector of the racetrack out of turn 6. Oh, and contact, and somebody spun. I couldn't see who it was, and there was, well, bodywork. Oh, well, bits of body. You can see bits of car. Further contact just coming into turn.
Is that Alexander West who's gone around? But it was all people rejoining the circuit, coming back across the Allied Racing Porsche. One went wide. You expect we're going to have a full course yellow after that. But Ben Barnicoat, he's made the break at the front. Lucas Stoltz tucked in behind. Timo Bogoslawski, that great start up to 3rd place. Dennis Marshall 4th, but he's been passed by Ricardo Feller at the top of the hill. And it is 188. That's dreadful news for them. They were the 2nd place team in the Pro-Am Championship. So Alexander West going nowhere at all. Frustration down in the pit. Safety car, there is the message on the screen. And even then, Suddenly, I think someone slowed a bit fast, and the Bentley went into the back of one of the Audis.
Yeah, what happened was the safety car, the yellow flag was thrown just at the point cars were entering turn 12. So those that saw it ahead, they got on the brakes, and suddenly everybody behind had nowhere to go. They had to dive to the left, dive to the right. So Ben Barnicoat in the lead, but it is a safety car situation. So there you can see the Mad Panda. How did it get involved in all that? We didn't quite see what. Well, it kicked this all off. It was on the exit. Look at the headlights gone as well.
Yeah.
On the exit out of turn 6 into the kink of turn 7.
Well, it carried on exactly down the whole of that straight, and I think you have no idea, but people were adjusting their lines as they were coming back onto the circuit, and somehow in that Alexander West has been caught out, and likewise Ezequiel Perez Compact limping in, and also the Oscar Tunio, who started. And from the Silver Cup class, that is a big blow for Oscar Tunio. Don't forget that car started 3rd on the grid, and it's limping in. A disaster for the Colombian.
That incident happened towards the front of the field rather than the middle of the field. It all began on the exit of turn 6. There was contact. We saw a car sparing off to the left. Didn't quite see who it was. But then it was in the kink of 7 that it really did kick off. And that's the reason why we've now got a safety car on track. And there you see the Aston still stuck on the grass. That'll have to be removed. There is bodywork carbon fibre there on the exit of turn 6, albeit to the left-hand side of the circuit. But here's the restart, Bruce. So
well, it was nice and clean and tidy. Brilliant start from the 3rd row for the Mercedes that went up the inside. That was Timo Bogoslawski. Absolutely did it fine. Then they were 4 abreast behind, nearly 5 abreast. Was there any contact here for Tunio? Look for the nose of the black Mercedes. It's still got its right complement of headlights as Barnicoat leads his way. Tidy into turn 1 for the first 2 cars. Bit of a squeeze, bit of a pinch here, but I think the big problem came up the crest of the hill to turn 6, and I think it was a series of accidents. Let's ride on board down towards the tail end of the field. Very busy. It's a tight track. It's a descent down to turn 1. This is Miguel Ramos. Has to keep his nose clean. He's leading the Pro-Am class. Doesn't want to take any risk, but from the moment the sea's opening in front of him, let's have a look as we go through turn 1. Spaces become available. Spaces get closed off. Nice and neat and tidy for him. But it's a busy stretch of track.
Yes, but everybody had to take avoiding action to go very far out to the right. Now, this is turn 2.
Again, riding over the curbs, neat and tidy at the tail end of the grid. I think we're going to have a whole face full of car when we get to the top of the hill. Down into the compression at turn 4. Cars getting a little bit close. The Aston Martin just riding across his bows. No contact there. So that's Alexander West gained a position or 2 in class now. Looking up down the hill as we accelerate, just trying to pick out exactly where we are. That's on the start finish straight. Okay, now we can see the pit buildings in the background. This is the front end of the grid. I think this must be off the tail end of Timo Bogoslawski's car. Thank you, the graphic confirms that. Ricardo Fellows' car tucking in behind. They were neat and tidy and cautious, and a few drivers really down the middle order running way off the circuit as we look at these fantastic replays up to turn 2. This is the car running in 3rd place. Dennis Marshall tucked in behind. That's neat, and from him it's what happened 3 corners later. Down the hill to turn 4 we come, John.
Yeah, so everything here is pretty much as it was on the grid. There was really no major contact, maybe a little body rub in turn 1, then out of turn 5 the climb up the hill. Now into turn 6, and it's at this point then, where did it all kick off? Because we couldn't quite see which car it was that was spat out to the left, now into the kink of 7. And again, this is where it all starts to go wrong behind. You can't quite see. Well, that was a hesitation from Chris Froggatt in the Ferrari. One of the big losers in this start actually was the 32 Audi of Charles Viert. He ended up going backwards when everybody was swamping all round him.
Well, he lost 3 places, and in fact he would have actually probably lost more if we hadn't lost Oscar Tunio from in front of him. But I think the problem started in around where Dries was, about 8th to 10th positions when they got to turn 6. It's a good evasive action there from Chris Froggatt, and is half a gap not enough or not? A little bit of body rubbing there with I think that's Umbarescu's Mercedes down in the middle order. No, it's Terashenko's Mercedes, I beg your pardon. Now, this is the blast to turn 5 out of 4. Now let's go up the hill. I think this could be where it's all going to start happening. Further back behind them, when they get to the corner at the top of the crest here, the Allied Racing Porsche went around the outside. Let's look. So Barnicoat leading from Stoltz. 3rd place Bogoslawski. Neat. 4th, 5th, all tidy. Right, Tunjo still running with all his headlights. There goes the Allied Racing Porsche so on a wide line. So Tunjo hit the back of the driver, I think, in about 5th place.
The Mad Panda. The Aston gets sideswiped. And that just simply spins him around in front of the back. So the Mad Panda got tapped on the rear, and that's what put it out to the the left-hand side of the circuit.
And the front end damage on the Mad Panda car was probably from hitting the barriers once he'd gone off the side of the circuit. I slightly feel for Alexander West. He gained several positions doing what he wanted to do in the Pro-Am class and taken out. Let's just have a little look at his car. Where does the 188 Aston Martin get collected? Oh, Tunjo's going slowly. The Ferrari pushes it into the path of Alexander West, so there was absolutely nothing the Swede could do. Absolutely phenomenal onboard camera work.
Well, there's the Aston being craned away.
Now, can it be repaired for the second race? Of course, we've got 2 races here today. The Sunday at Circuit Ricardo Tormo. It should be able
Yes, there's plenty of time to get the car back to the team and get it repaired. There may be a suspension damage on that left or right rear. So that'll be taken back, repaired, but it's the damage that's been done by not being able to consolidate or gain additional points.
Well, Oscar Tunjo, that's a spike right through his Silver Cup Championship hopes, and happened so early on. And Jussi Pohaka, the Finn on the left, there's nothing he can do. He was standing in the pit lane. Huge frustration. We knew with the circuit as twisty as this, there could be contact, but the fact they got through the first 5 corners with no damage whatsoever is very frustrating. So the car's still going around the circuit, but we've just seen Alexander West's cars being taken off. Let's hear from his teammate, Johnny Adam.
Johnny, a very dramatic start to the race. What do you make of what happened?
Unfortunately, obviously, a car spun at turn 6, and obviously when it rejoined, the Ferrari looked like it moved across, hit the Mercedes into Alex, and obviously we were out the race. So not the great start to the day. Obviously, we needed points in race 1 for the championship, but it's just, you know, it looked very aggressive from everyone really on that one. So we'll see how we get on in race 2.
A lot of people talk about how narrow this circuit is. Is that part of the problem here?
Yeah, and also the lights were turned off quite late there, which makes a concertina effect all the way into turn 1 and for the rest of the lap. So it's difficult, you know, there's a lot of damage to the car there. So hopefully the guys will work hard to get it repaired for this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Johnny Adam, frustrated there. One thing I've just noticed, the car that went really wide at turn 6 is running very well. It's right up at the sharp end of the field. The Allied Racing Porsches seem to avoid everything. Let's take a look. Up to turn 6 we go. And it's tidy for the first 5 or 6 places. It's the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes got squeezed. It actually wasn't by Oscar Tunjo. There was a car between them, but then the 2 Mercedes, the white one, Mad Panda, went off to the left, and it was all the evasion around the outside. And then just wait now, look, that's where Alexander West had nowhere to go.
No, it was going to be a closing gap, and he actually was well off the racing track at that point. So this is into turn 8 behind the safety car. So still work being done on the racetrack just to pick up the errant bits of carbon fibre to make sure that that's clear. That's always a no-no to leave it on the racetrack.
Right, so while we saw the long faces at the number 7 Talksport WRT garage, Pohaka.
Safety car lights off.
Okay, we're about to go racing all over again. Just finish the point. In the Silver Cup class, their hopes are now over. But for Alex Fontana, he's in 4th place overall. So it looks, if he can continue from here, hand over to him from Ricardo Feller, all will be good for them in the Silver Cup class. So really, really unfortunate. To be honest, I thought the driving was pretty clean until we got up to turn number 6. There really was minimal contact, but then of course 2 cars spinning on a corner that turns left at the top of a hill. It's always going to be difficult.
Yes, and then of course that set off the secondary chain reaction as they came into turn 7 as safety car now is returned into the pit lane. The race is going to go green.
So off we go, and again Ben Barnicoat nails it, pulls clear of Lucas Stoltz, Timo Bogoslawski, all nice and clean at the front, but Ben Barnicoat gained a few tenths of a second, and can he do what he did at Brands Hatch and simply pull away? But the big problem for him is if Lucas Stoltz is left free, isn't tackled pretty quickly by Timo Bogoslawski. If Bogoslawski gets on his tail, then the McLaren should be able to escape on its own. But look, Ricardo Feller's looking very busy indeed in 4th place overall. And Charvier's just picking up a place or 2 there, I would think, at the top of the hill. So not champions for nothing for Team WRT.
Ricardo Feller's going to want to try and get through the number 88 Mercedes as quickly as possible. You can see really he's quicker than Timo Bogoslawski in the Mercedes. But whether and up the inside, and that was a door being opened. Wow, Dennis Marshall took the opportunity, didn't make it stick, but look how wide Ricardo Feller had to go coming out of turn 6. Well, that would be something will get the attention of race director, because that clearly gave him the advantage on the exit of the corner to consolidate his position.
Well, I'm really impressed with Dennis Marshall this weekend. He set very, very good pace in qualifying and was able to start fourth accordingly. But he's also showing he's a racer too, and the door was wide open. Why not go for the gap? I think Feller was focusing too much on Boguslavski in their battle for third place. But while they do that, the first two cars are escaping. I honestly feel that Feller has more pace than Boguslavski, but Boguslavski has his car in front. Turn 12, well, it's not an overtaking place, but the compromise as the Lamborghini came back down onto the deck. The only advantage for him there was the fact that Marshall also went clattering over the curbs at that tricky left-hander.
And up the inside, Charles Viet makes...
Incident between car 90 and car 7 under investigation. Incident between car 90 and 7 in turn 6 at the start lap under investigation.
Okay, that is the contact between the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes, driven by Ezekiel Perez-Companc, and of course Oscar Tunio, the Top Sport WRT number 7 Mercedes. Into Nissan warfare. This isn't into Nissan, but let's take a look at the Silver Cup prediction if they go as they are. 107.5 points if Fontana, his car, it'll be all over bar the shouting. But look at this, Fontana is pressing on, well, Feller is pressing on. He'll be handing that car over to Alex Fontana. So Fontana will be sitting in the pits with half a smile on his face, but a bit of concern. Yes, if Feller gets past, he may be able to do it around the outside, but there is no outside, surely, at the crest of the hill, wide. Well, almost in the grandstands. I reckon Dennis Marshall is probably about to pick up 2 places if they carry on like that.
I mean, he has, Ricardo Feller's found his way through, but they find a way through literally so far off the racing line. I don't know whether that will be, again, something that will come under the observation. In the meantime, Feller has gained that position, and he's going to pull away literally by the corner. Dennis Marshall now right behind the 88 Mercedes.
I think there's there's a place change in behind because Leo Roussel's decided to go up inside Ulysses Depot, but don't forget, Ulysses in that Bentley's got great speed, but that move's been made. Who's coming through in the background?
Charles
the orange
Viet.
flash, it's Charles Viet. He's past Julian Apostolos in the Allied Racing. Porsche, the second of the Santalot Racing Audis, is in the mix. They're coming up to speed today. The Audis just were out of sorts through the 2 days, the practice day and the qualifying day, but today a clean track, and they're picking off cars at will.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very busy racetrack indeed. Norbert Siedler also trying to make progress on board with the 93 Sky Tempesta Ferrari. Chris Froggatt currently in 12th place, looking at the rear of Norbert Siedler's Lamborghini down the straight into turn 1. So no way really to make an overtake unless you're absolutely square alongside that car. And Siedler's having to go defensive as he did. So that was preventing Froggatt from trying to make it move up the inside into turn 2, then come down with a quick flick through 3, then down into another braking zone into turn 4, try and make it a double apex. But what's impressive is Lucas Stoltz is going with Ben Barnicoat. Ben Barnicoat is not making the break that we saw him do at Brands Hatch.
Well, both of them are making a break and everyone else. They're nearly 5 seconds clear. That's Ben Barnicoat back to third place, Ricardo Feller. I think Ricardo might have the pace to start eking towards them. I think we're going to have 3 cars clear of the pack fairly soon. Timo Boguslavski is the bung in the bottle. Dennis Marshall, looking back from Boguslavski's car, is pushing very, very hard indeed. He should be going for some handy points in the Silver Cup class, but as we've seen with the latest predictions in that class, Alex Fontana, his car is leading that class. He will take it over in the second half of the race, and then the championship will so nearly be his.
Well, now things have begun to settle down. We're on to lap 8. Boguslavski has lost a couple of positions, but he's got Dennis Marshall behind him, but that kind of threat is not as aggressive as it was from Ricardo Feller and the Lamborghini. Feller clearly wanted to make that
Drive-through
position.
penalty to car 90 for speeding in the pit lane. Drive-through penalty car 90, speeding in the pit lane.
So let's go down the order. Ben Barnicoat leading from Lucas Stoltz. As you can see there, the McLaren and the Mercedes well clear. Now Ricardo Feller giving chase, but dropping back a tiny bit in third place. Fourth place, Timo Boguslavski. Then comes the traffic. Marshall, Roussel, Dupont, Viet, Apostolos and Panis. They are the top 10 nose to tail, but now they are nose to tail rather than side by side. So it's going to be a time of settling back down, entrenchment. But Ezekiel Perez-Companc, front end damage to the car, possible back end damage, and now a drive-through penalty. So one feels he was the driver being saddled with the blame for the contact with Oscar Tunjo at the top of the hill at turn 6 on the opening lap that led to so many other cars getting knocked out of shape.
Well, looking around, Ricardo Feller in that Lamborghini in third place, fastest race lap, and that's by a fraction of a second from that of Ben Barnicoat. So Feller got his eyes clearly set on the back of the second place Mercedes, but that's 3.7 seconds down the road, and that's going to be a case of getting your head down and just try and focus before we get into the pit stop window, which is going to open up in about 8 minutes anyway.
I know, almost feels it's early opening on Sunday. So much has been happening. Of course, you always forget we had the safety car period while the clean-up work was effective. Very effective work. They got it done. But impressed with Ricardo Feller, as I have been all season. But again, look, we've got 3 mates of car in the top 3 positions. The McLaren leading the way, Ben Barnicoat, the Mercedes of Lucas Stoltz in second, and now giving chase to Perez and Ricardo Feller in third. But Boguslavski has plenty of company. But the one who's looking busiest of all is Charles Weerts.
Yes, indeed. Charles Weerts really ran down the back of the Bentley coming into turn 8. The turn back was turn 13 onto 14, so back onto the start-finish straight. So that's where we're seeing gains from Charles Weerts. All the good performances right now. Further down the field, Benjamin Goethe, who started at the very back of the field, up to 14th in the Gulf Audi.
Right, now one of the cars that had been overtaken in the Prime class is now leading it in 19th place overall. Louis Michiels, he'll be sharing with Andrea Bertolini. Miguel Ramos, championship leader, is second in class, and unfortunately, obviously, Alexander West, who was second in the championship, his car is now on a flatbed truck and will not be accruing points in this morning's race, but still the final race, the 10th race this 10-race season will be this afternoon, and maybe, just maybe, something will come their way. But for Barwell Motorsport, looking pretty tidy with their car second in the Prime class.
Ben Barnicoat leading by 1.3 seconds. Gone fastest in Sector 1 on this current lap. There's another move from Charles Weerts. Wow! Well, that's a contact with a Bentley, and that's going to be something. Oh, that was going to be both cars, in fact. So the Audi sideways on the track, the Bentley in the gravel and bedded. So we're going to probably see another, certainly full course yellow, but that's 8 coming out under its own steam. So the Bentley bedded, and I think that will be a penalty for the 32 Audi for a collision that would have been an avoidable one. So Charles Weerts continues around the circuit. Watch and see, this is the view from the pit grandstand camera down the inside. I mean, never in a month of Sundays, and it is a Sunday today, was that ever going to come off. That was the Bentley's corner, and Charles Weerts just made of his judgment.
So full course yellow. The dive came from a long way back at turn 13. It's a long corner.
I mean, that dive came off the 30-meter board.
It did. 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow now.
So full course yellow. Unfortunately for Ulysse de Pau, the Belgian racer, had been driving very, very well indeed. His car punted around, and in fact that's not turn 13, is it? It's turn 8.
Turn 8.
The dive
yes.
down the inside to turn 8 again, a tightening corner. And unfortunately, I would suggest for Charles Weerts, the camera was on his car that gave a clear picture of how far he came from. He'd been making great moves, gaining positions.
But Charles Weerts had done a very good job, you know, having lost ground at the start, then making ground back up again. But that one was a no-hoper. So you put that one down to, well, can you put it down to inexperience and immaturity? Well, he's got a load of experience now, and he's a very mature young racing driver who's just succeeded in tying up 2 of the 3 championships.
Yeah, so anyhow, it's all a learning process, and that move clearly was from 2 back. And you feel particularly sorry for Ulysse de Pau, driving very well, and just the fact he couldn't get going, those rear wheels bogged down now in the gravel. So nobody losing anything, nobody gaining anything behind the full course yellow in the full course yellow period. So it's a moment of stasis. The pit window will be open fairly soon, John.
Yes, it will be. It'll be in 5 minutes. But what was very impressive actually is the gravel did its job. A lot of gravel around racetracks doesn't really arrest cars. They just skim over it like a stone over water. But that actually did what it's required to do. It stopped the Bentley. Unfortunately, the downside is it has to then have a full course yellow to enable the car to be recovered from that gravel trap to enable this race to get back underway. And we're just coming up to 20 minutes in, and we've had, we're on the 11th lap, and ordinarily we should be on about the 13th lap.
Yes, and of course for Ben Barnicoat and Lucas Stoltz. So Charles Weerts, he's now okay. This is self-chastisement, because this isn't the sort of move you normally see from Charles Weerts, and you can see how frustrated he is now.
I wonder if there's a radio communication between the ship to shore, between Charles Weerts and the car, or maybe down in the pit lane.
Well, we've just seen the frustration for Charles Weerts. Let's go down to hear from his teammate, from Dries van Toor.
Dries, I think it's fair to say that's not something we would expect to see from Charles.
No, I mean, but it's difficult, you know, when you're behind the other car and not really finding a way to pass. It's getting a bit frustrating, but that was also not really necessary. But yeah, it can happen, you know. It's part of racing. He doesn't do it on purpose, but it is what it happens. So we cannot change it anymore.
Perfect. Thank you.
what can you say? I mean, Dries van Thor asked the hard question. What can you say? Well, look, what can you say? You say your teammate, and not say what I would like to say, but it ends in up.
It does indeed. Anyhow, chalk it down. Disappointment though for CMR. Their Bentleys were going increasingly well through the course of this weekend and had all the grunt down the start-finish straight. So this is taking a look from behind. There's a gap, but you're coming from a long way back. The Bentley has to turn in at some point.
Of course. I mean, that is a classic example of a misjudgment into a corner. And turn 8 is one of the more tricky corners on this Ricardo Tomo circuit. But because it's a very late apex, you tend to hang out a little bit later before you make your final cut. But in this case, the move that Charles Vert's made, and you can see the braking speed of the Bentley vis-a-vis the approach speed of the Audi, and it was inevitable what was going to happen. And sadly, it's taken effectively the Bentley out of the race. It's now been recovered onto the racetrack, but it's lost, what, 2 laps?
Yeah, but also for Ben Barnicoat, Lucas Stoltz and Ricardo Fellow, the top 3 drivers, they've lost 2 laps in which they're driving at a bated pace. Everyone else is at the same pace, but they should have been stretching their advantage, putting some sort of points in the bank, if you will, in terms of those golden seconds that you gain before a pit stop. So behind the safety car, the lights are out. That's good work from the marshals all over again. And Ben Barnicoat, this is the dream circuit for a pace safety car release, because that really tight final corner,
green flag.
you nail it, the green flag is waved, and again Ben Barnicoat will continue in the lead of the race. Nobody else, of course, can overtake. Just now on the run down to turn 1, past the start finish line. Now it's all fair game, but Ben Barnicoat's got exactly what he needed. But for Ricardo Fellow, this is good news.
Absolutely. Just want to say the man that's going to maybe be the biggest beneficiary of this could be Ricardo Fellow, who's been very aggressive in the early phases of the race. Now he's found himself in a position closer to the rear of the Mercedes in second place than he had been when we were under green flag racing. So he's got a second, or maybe actually a third bite of the cherry as they go on to now the 13th lap of this. The pit lane window is going to open up in just over a minute and a half's time. So I just wonder if any or who might be the first to choose to make that pit stop and put in the case, let's say, the 88 Mercedes. Will they bring in Boguslawski, currently in 4th position, but only just under half a second ahead of Dennis Marshall? Or are they going to keep him out and to wait for the field to maybe look what's going on down? Ricardo Fellow. No, it's not there. It's that Norbert Siedler.
Yeah, a little bit further down the pack. That should be that was Constantine trying to gain several positions. He's down in the middle order, about 14th place. Up front though, what we're getting, this is better for Barnicoat. Not only is he escaping, but Fellow's right on the tail of Stoltz. Stoltz didn't have company in that second place in the first part of the race. Don't forget, there's about a 4 second gap back to the Lamborghini. It was going faster than Stoltz, but now it may be able to entertain him, occupy him as the first 3 cars run through turn 14. Down the start-finish straight. They're not thinking of coming in. The pit window isn't yet open, but next time around it will be.
Well, I would imagine McLaren are going to keep Barnicoat out for as long as they possibly can. I mean, in regards to the number 6 Mercedes, I don't know what they'll do, because both drivers are very, very evenly matched. Just getting a little bit defensive coming down into turn 1. And I would keep Ricardo Fellow in as long as possible, because he's right on the pace.
Right, Miguel Ramos on our screen. He's top of the Pro-Am points. He's second in Pro-Am in this race. Just one car, the dynamic Porsche, between his car and the car that's leading the class on the circuit. So Ramos, second place in the Pro-Am today, would be satisfactory, would certainly extend his advantage over his immediate chaser, which is the Adam and West car. But of course, the Adam West car isn't getting any points whatsoever. That was knocked out of the race. Right, this, to my eye, came in too soon.
Well, they've come in, they've done it now, they're in clear air, so they can use that pit stop time and get out and run at their own natural pace. So that will be Dominic Baumann has taken over from Valentin Pierberg.
I saw something move in the back of my eye, but I don't think the pit window was open. It's open now, it opened 10 seconds ago, but
indeed,
that could have jumped too soon.
You might be right, because
this is a car running that's third in the Pro-Am class, and with Adam and West not going to score in this point, would move into second place in the class. Let's see. Now, finally, Dennis Marshall has made a move on Timo Boguslawski. Timo not quite on the form today. The car maybe not quite right beneath him. Now he's suddenly got another challenge. Excuse me, Leo Roussel closing in.
Yeah, I mean, so Timo Boguslawski has been hammered really pretty much since this race got underway. First with Ricardo Fellow, and the 88 is coming in as I had anticipated to get it in, make the pit stop as early as possible. Look, as leader of second place and third also in. So a lot of teams, I'm surprised. I thought they might have kept Ricardo Fellow in that what was third place Lamborghini in a little bit longer before he comes in. to hand over, and that 14 will go to Alex Fontana. So there is the 6 in. So Lucas Stolz gets out, and also the barbell has come. So a lot of teams have opted to come in early, which is maybe more of a surprise to me. Teams have obviously worked the strategy. They feel what is best for them, as the pit lane is very busy. And look, 3 cars all certainly. Oh, good stop by the TalkSport team to get number 6 turn around, and that's Mauro Engel rolling down the pit lane. So that's going to maybe see a reaction coming from the Jose McLaren team to cover that move.
It could. So very slight gain there. Very busy in the pit lane. The Alex Fontana Lamborghini lost maybe a second or so through the course of that pit stop. For the Pro-Am leaders, Miguel Ramos has handed over to Enrique Chavez. Up front, though, it's Ben Barnicoat leading by 5 seconds from Dennis Marshall, who made that good move to get past Bogoslawski a short while ago. And I think that leaves Julian Apostolos in 3rd place overall. Yes, it does. Aurelian Panis, so a Porsche in the top 3, John. That put a smile in your face. Aurelian Panis. Stefan Riquelme moves up to 5th place overall in his Bentley. Constant Apolainen, who we saw fighting in traffic a lap or so ago. Now, this is a second stop, and apparently the first stop for the SPS Automotive Mercedes, they didn't come in before the pit stop window was open for the sake of it. They came in because they had to have a puncture replaced, and clearly we saw a fair bit of debris out on the circuit, and it's always an unfortunate side effect of someone else's accident.
Yes, and it's just unfortunate the incident occurred just prior to the pit lane window opening, so they've got to go through the process all again. That previous time was only a 1 tyre change, but that's a full set of tyres and a driver change for the 20 Mercedes, the SPS Automotive. As we look at one of the 2 Bentleys, and they're coming down.
So that's Pierberg handing over to Dominic Baumann, but it's still Ben Barnicoat leading the race by 5.1 seconds from Dennis Marshall from the Attempter Racing Audi. And this weekend, Dennis has Alex Acker taking over in the second part of the race, but just not yet. Looking to see who's setting good times out on the circuit. I do expect Ben Barnicoat to extend his lead, but the interesting thing is how Mauro Engel has really gained. Is it stretched that gap over Alex Fontana? Of course, it was Stolz and Feller in the first part of the race. They came in nose to tail in the pits. And the 88 Mercedes, now Raffaele Marcello on board, and one of the Bentleys going absolutely wide down at turn 1.
Well, I think that was the consequence of the 163 Lamborghini Albert Costa maybe making its way past the Bentley. A lot of drivers have used that bit of extreme exit space under turn 1. There's a couple of other places where the track is very wide. Here up at turn 6, we've seen drivers going well off the racetrack and then being able to come back on and not having any penalty as a consequence.
So top of the hill, drivers still running wide in that stretch of track. Just looking at the circuit, the run from 6 to 7 still under investigation. The incident between 188, 752 and 90.
Car 107 and 32 under investigation.
Okay, that's the Ulysses Depot and Charles Wiertz Bentley Audi confrontation at turn number 8. That's under investigation as well. So the stewards are going to be busy. I think they felt with the format of this circuit, John, they were going to be busy because certainly there are points at which you can overtake, but it requires precision and maybe sometimes a little assistance from another driver to accept the deal is done.
I would add judgment to that comment, because I think there was a lack of judgment from Charles Wiertz when he tried to overtake the Bentley, because it was just so far behind, and there was no reality of that becoming a move that was going to be a happy outcome.
Who's just set the fastest lap of the race? Raffaele Marcello. He's taken over from Timo Bogoslawski. He's down in 11th place, but still with four cars to pit. He should rise up the order a bit, but absolutely flying. And interesting to see where that ends up. And again, just as we look for 88, goes very, very wide down at the first turn.
So Marcello showing a pace that he didn't really show in qualifying for race 2, but doing what you'd expect him to do. Currently in 11th place. Ben Barnicoat yet to make his pit stop, as same as Dennis Marshall. There is our race leader. He's got a 5.4 second advantage, which, as you might say, around this circuit, 4-kilometer circuit, is a relatively comfortable one. But we've had 2 full course yellows and safety car interventions as the Porsche makes its way into the pit lane, just about gets slowed down to the mandatory 50 kilometers per hour.
Coming in from 3rd place, this is a car that started way down the order and really benefited on the opening lap, running super wide at turn 6. Actually was to its advantage, steered clear of all the shenanigans between there and turn 7, but a great run from young French racer Julian Apostolos.
Yeah, and you can see that Mauro Engel's pulling clear of Alex Fontana as Raffaele Marcello is thundering up on board. Here we are with Raffaele Marcello coming into turn 13, and he is really about to zone in onto the back of the Lamborghini. So if I was Alex Fontana, I'd probably keep my eye as much, if not more, on the rear view mirror or video screen as I'm looking forward to Maro Engel, who is escaping down the road in the number 6 Mercedes.
Well, they're going to be fighting over there in 7th and 8th positions, but with 3 cars still to pit. Of course, Julian Potlos, sorry, he's not French, he's a Swiss driver, I should point that out. Klaus Bachler, Austrian driver, has just taken over from him, but up front it's nearly 6 seconds. Actually, really impressed with Dennis Marshall this weekend. We know Ben Barnicoat around a circuit like this is going to be very quick, but he's only gaining about 1/10 of a second a lap. That's a real accolade for Marshall.
Yes, and that's also been the dominant, one might say, dominant Audi here this weekend. The car that we normally expect to see leading the Audi Chargers with 32, and that has had a difficult weekend. Race leader is in, so he came in with just 3 minutes of the window open. He could have done one more lap, but they've chosen to bring him in. And it's not about coming in, it's about where will they return, and will they be returning in what would I best describe as the clearest of air available right now. So they're going to be focusing very much on the pace of that number 6 Mercedes-Benz Maro Engel, and that will be, there is Maro Engel. So the driver change is complete, seat belts and all the attachments, radio, and I don't think there's a need of a drinks bottle. The car, a good stop by the Jota team. So there is turn 13. The McLaren is going down the pit lane. Where will it rejoin? Will the Mercedes? It's going to be close because we haven't even seen the McLaren coming now. So just there's the demarcation line he's going to cross. So it's very nip and tuck. Looks like the Mercedes is going to take the advantage, and it has done. It's gotten ahead.
Well, that just shows how hard Maro Engel's been pressing since he got into the car. He was, it seemed a very good pit stop, because certainly gained a second or so on Ricardo Feller's changeover to Alex Fontana. But right now, Ollie Wilkinson's got his work cut out, because this Mercedes from TalkSport is going better and better. Ben Barnicoat, little surprised to find that Mercedes ahead. Probably frustrated, no doubt, by those 2 safety car periods during his tenure in that opening stint.
Yeah, in fairness, Maro Engel has been
warning flag to car 30, track limits 3 times. Warning flag, car 30, track limits 3
well,
times.
That's been Robin Fiennes or Benjamin Goethe, I think. Robin Fiennes is behind the wheel at the present time, so that car's being penalised for that. But there is the 88 ACA ASP, and the progress that we saw, or we have seen, I should say, a wide corner just ahead of him from Alex Fontana, and that's the kind of thing that Raffaele Marcello will be seeking, because he knows that maybe the Lamborghini's struggling a little bit with front end bite and grip. Turn 8 is a corner that really tests the front end of any of these cars. Now coming into this quick right, then the left. Watch you don't use too much of the... I don't think Raffaele knows where the circuit demarcation lines are.
Certainly a jarring drive for all the drivers going over the strips there, but out of this tight final corner, it's get the power down when you're comfortable, but nice tidy exit in front of him. But let's have a look. Going past the pit, that wonderful Mercedes engine note. Sounds fabulous in the cockpit, but there seems to be no gain at all.
Drive-through penalty to car 32, causing a collision. Drive-through penalty 32, causing a collision.
Well, that didn't take long to determine, did it? Well, we did it here in the commentary booth without... So anyway, let's move on. So 32 is going to have a drive-through penalty, and that's going to destroy what was left of that car's chances of getting anywhere in the points. But it doesn't really matter, because they've won. They've tied up all the championship they can tie up here.
They can, and at the moment Dries Van Til running in 15th place, and with that drive-through penalty announced for him to serve, because his teammate Charvier's made a slightly rash move down into turn 8, that will drop him to the tail of the pack. But with you're quite right, the championship in the bag, as he said, when the form wasn't here this weekend, they were very glad they weren't fretting over a championship win. They nailed the Sprint Cup with a great result, a podium result in the second race at Brands Hatch, the 4th of the 5 rounds.
Dennis Marshall has now got Christopher Haase lasering out onto the back of the 66 as we go back to this battle for what is in effect going to be 3rd and 4th positions.
Obviously, it's no longer Dennis Marshall. It's been taken over by Alex Acker, but one of those occasions where the little switch hasn't been flicked.
Technically, race leader actually is not Maro Engel. It's actually Christian Engelhardt. So on the overlap during the pit stops, we didn't notice that 54. So that is... we didn't see it. So where does that pop up from?
It won't be. It's just... It's Just waiting for the next timing margin, and you'll see him
refreshed.
tumbling down the order.
Yeah,
So
no,
refreshing.
that's fine.
What's the
Thank
gap to Wilkinson? Just under 2.5 seconds. So that means not only did Maro Engel have his nose in front when Wilkinson rejoined in the McLaren, he is starting to pull away. Now, look, third and fourth places, Alex Fontana and Raffaele Marciello closing in. Then in the background, Alex Arco, they've flicked the switch now, and Christopher Haase in their Audis. In fact, 4 Audis in a row. There's Marcus Finkelhoff, Sansalot Racing and Robin Fries, but we know that number 30 car is on a final warning for track limit excess.
Well, Maro Engel's up and running and has got this race in his pocket, other than something unforeseen happened. But the battle for second place between Wilkinson, Fontana and Marcello is going to be the focal point of the remaining 23 minutes. And the pace that we saw from Marcello in his initial laps, maybe now that's settled down. He's had the best of that set of Pirelli tyres he put on. There you see just in the background, second, third and fourth. And Ollie Wilkinson consolidating, and I've no doubt more as surprised as Ben Barnacle was to see where the number 6 Mercedes came from.
Well, the McLaren's actually falling back, so let's hear from the driver who's got out, from Ben Barnacle.
Ben, obviously you drove a sterling first stint there, pulled up quite the lead, and a tough challenge now for Ollie.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we were very unlucky with the safety cars. Had it not been for that, I think we would have comfortably come out of the pits in the lead. Unfortunately, the top sport cars jumped us in the pits, so Ollie came out in second, which is annoying, but at the end of the day, if we could still, if Ollie can hang on to it, it's going to be an amazing result for us.
Hopefully the drama's settled down a little bit now.
Yeah, that's it, you know, it was all looking pretty cushy until about 4 minutes to go last time, so let's wait and see. Hope no McLaren get involved and he can bring it home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look pretty cushy. That's translated for all looking pretty good and comfortable. But my concern at the moment for Ollie Wilkinson, he is actually falling back into the grasp of Alex Fontana and Raffaele Marciello. The Lamborghini and the Mercedes coming onto his tail. And this is absolutely magical news for Maro Engel, who is streaking clear now.
Yes, I mean, Engel has essentially got this race to win, to lose. I mean, he's just got a
warning flag at 25 track limits 3 times.
Santalog Racing, Lou Russell and Christopher Haase, so that's going to stem that car's progress, currently in 5th place.
Well, only just moved into 5th place past Alex Arca, who took over the car that Dennis Marshall drove so well. Now, in the Pro-Am class, how close would you like your runners to be? Andrea Bertolini in the Ferrari is leading the class, and right behind is the championship leader, Enrique Chavez, and they fancy putting this one to bed if they possibly can for Barwell Motorsport. But Andrea Bertolini, building on the work that Louis Michels did in the first part of the race, leading the way, but you sort of sense the Lamborghinis are coming.
Yeah, the Lamborghini looks to have more natural pace right now, but Bertolini is a very seasoned competitor. He knows how to use his car, but again, just the Ferrari not quite as tight and able to hold that exit through turn 8 as the Lamborghini we saw following behind. So, Enrique Chavez, what does he need to do?
Well, he's not really in a championship battle with Bertolini and Michels. He came here with a 20 and a half point advantage over them. But it's where, if he fancies winning the Pro-Am class in this race, where is he going to make the move?
That's the point. Does he bother making the move, or is it something just, you know, do the strategic thing and sit where he is?
Always a dilemma, isn't it? Of course, when you're in the car and you fancy the moment, but certainly been a very good run for the Barwell crew through the course.
Car 14 is under investigation.
Car 14, that's, oh dear, that's the car in 3rd place overall. Alex Fontana took it over from Ricardo Feller. So, under investigation, the stewards are being very busy indeed. Nobody seems to be investigating Maro Engel because he's so far clear. Great run for him. He's 3.8 seconds clear. Riding on board now with the Lamborghini in the Pro-Am class, the Barwell car, trying to see where the AF Corsa Ferrari is going to leave a gap, if indeed Andrea Bertolini is even thinking of such a thing.
Well, there's probably not going to be too many gaps left by Bertolini because of his experience. So out of turn 5, up the hill into turn 6. And he's always got the gain or the advantage on the exit of a corner. He may not be the quickest in, but he's got the speed off the corner, and that dictates the pace that Chavez behind has got to follow. So it's this seesaw effect, you know, acceleration and braking through turn 8. Ferrari maybe not quite as convincing as the Lambo is through that sequence of corners. This is the middle sector of this Romano Tomo circuit. There is the gain that, look at Maro Engel, he's got. It was 3.9 seconds, and they came across the line at the last time.
Right, that was a better lap from Ollie Wilkinson. He's settling into that into his stint now, and Alex Fontana may have had a message that his pit stop, the one that handed the car to him, is under investigation. Maybe the team are wise, they don't tell him. Just keep on racing in that second place. You got company because Marcello is all over your tail. Then there's 5 and a bit seconds back to Christopher Hassel, but his is under warning for exceeding track limits.
Arthur Rouget in the wheel, behind the wheel of the 114. So he is running in 13th place directly behind Matteo Drudi. So you're getting little pockets of cars, 3 and 4 cars.
Warning flag, car 88, track limits.
Car 88, Raffaele Marcello running in 4th place. Soon they're going to have to issue us with a list of drivers who aren't under investigation for some crime or other. It was always going to be an issue. I mentioned it on the cars on the formation lap. We didn't want to mention track limits, but we sort of knew, John, we were going to.
It was going to become a feature of the race. There you see Marcello. I suspect that's coming through the exit or through the middle of turn 12, where you go from right to left, and if you run too wide in the right segment of that corner, that's going to get that's the corner there I'm talking about.
He could also be at turn 1. Remember, we saw him in the background of the shop when he was pretty much down in the shopping arcade at the edge of the circuit.
So in the meantime, Alex Fontana, and he's still within. To me, the salvation for Ollie Wilkinson is I think the McLaren looks the better of the 3 cars that are all contesting second place.
So, Silver Championship will be decided because Ricardo Feller cannot overhaul Alex Fontana. He's a teammate, but certainly well clear. That's the prediction at the moment. The big losers were Oscar Tunjo and Yusuf Oaxaca out on the opening lap. They came here 3rd, and Bird and Tamita were starting way down the order. And in fact, the Bird Tamita car, just trying to see where they are at the moment. They're 14th place overall, so they won't be scoring lots of points in the Silver Cup. So as long as the pit stop isn't found to be faulty for the number 14 crew, then the Silver Cup will be theirs. But for Andrea Fontana, as he said in the pre-race interviews, he's actually focusing on overall of everything rather than the Silver Cup class. It's easier to focus on the front of the race and see what points you accrue, but through the course of the season, the Swiss racer has accrued plenty of points for the silver driver lineups. Now, in the prediction in the Pro-Am class is Miguel Ramos and Enrique Chavez. Their car is almost making a move to try and take the lead of the class down at turn 4, but if they finish second, they'll be well ahead, 100, and they'll be 15.5 points ahead of Pierberg and Baumann. Of course, they were scuppered by getting that puncture that caused an extra pit stop.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, you're watching Chavez, you're putting pressure on Bertolini. He doesn't need to overtake, but of course he would like to do. Oh, what's happened here? Where's all that come from? What's happened to Ollie Wilkinson? Fontana suddenly right on the rear of the McLaren. On the middle of that lap, maybe there's an error coming through the middle sector. Certainly
not an obvious one in terms of time. He lost 1/10 of a second, maybe 1500s, but they have. I actually think it's more a case of Fontana getting onto his tail because Marcello is falling away behind. So Fontana's got his tail up. He knows that actually he could get on the podium here. He's running in 3rd place, but he fancies 2nd place. But he also is gathering points by the handful in the Silver Cup class.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, the McLaren was looking the best car of these 3, but all of a sudden the pace that Fontana has shown has put him now into a challenging position for that 2nd place. Ollie Wilkinson now realizing that while I felt relatively comfortable in 2nd place, I don't feel comfortable anymore.
And I would reckon with this battle intensifying for 2nd place, it means that Mauro Engel will continue to stretch his advantage at the front of the field. It was 4.777 seconds last time around. I would reckon it's going to go north of 5. But out of turn 6, through the kink at 7, the McLaren pulling away, but under braking and diving into turn 8, the Audi, I've gone completely mad. The Lamborghini is so good.
Very interesting. It was the way that Fontana was able to close into turn 13 into 14. Again, closes up considerably coming through this middle sector. So again, up into this turn 12 and then into 13. So watch how close Fontana thinks he can make a move. It's not possible. You're not anywhere near close enough, but doesn't stop him putting himself into the mirror of the McLaren to try and distract. So Ollie Wilkinson maybe did get distracted on that particular lap because he ran wider on the exit of 14 than one would normally expect to do.
Interval about to come up between race leader Maro Engel. He gained 7/10 of a second on that lap, or 6.5 tenths. So now it's nearly 5.5 seconds clear in the lead of the race. For TalkSport WRT, it seemed to be a season in which the white car couldn't get a lot right. It had so many mishaps, always quick. This weekend it came, it didn't look quick at all, but there it is in the lead of the race, nobody challenging it. And we've got, what, under 15 minutes remaining, and he's stretching clear. It's a fabulous race for them.
And behind, in fourth place, Raffaele Marcello has got nothing left in the tank. His charge began at the beginning of his stint. He made whatever he had to do, but all of a sudden, in the last couple of laps, he's now consolidating rather than attacking.
Yeah, he's almost a second down on Fontana. So, but this battle for Pro-Am honours on the track, at least, being watched by Mark Lemmer at Barwell Motorsport, the championship nearly in the bag. But if these positions could be rotated, the Lamborghini will get in front, then they're definitely in the bag in the Pro-Am class. 16.5 points is the margin for victory. Is a score for victory, and they're 15.5 points clear if they finish as they are. If these positions swap over, then it's a done and dusted deal. So plenty of tension. But Mark Lemmer watching the screens, we've dragged him away to tell us his thoughts at Barwell.
Mark, obviously just watching on there. I don't want to say too much, but things are looking promising.
Yeah, we're in a good spot at the moment. We don't need to pass Andrea. But obviously we want to try and win the race as well. But we're telling him no risk, but he's just been along side by side there. Yeah, all good. Obviously it was a messy start for a lot of people. And Miguel, 50 today, he's very experienced, and he just stayed out of trouble in that opening 10 minutes, which is what we wanted to do. So hopefully now Enrique can just bring it home. But a class win would just be the icing on the cake, but we're not greedy, so we'll just take the P2, I think.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
That is so Bruce, funny, John. When Charles and Dries van Toor's coming through, this could actually be to the advantage of Enrique Chavez there, chasing down this great battle with Bertolini. But so many times you get drivers interviewed in the background.
Flag car 89, track limits 3 times.
Okay, that's which of the Mercedes, that's Jules Gounon now. But so many times in the background of an interview, something happens relating to that interview. But as that was happening, and Chavez was trying to inside.
Contact with the McLaren and the Lamborghini, second and third, and almost. How did Marcello manage to miss the McLaren?
And through the Santalok Audi is going to come through and gain 3 positions in the blink of an eye. So that's Christopher Haase, too experienced not to take that opportunity. But the contact with down the inside went Fontana. Now, did both of them get going? We know that Marcello got going again. He's in third place, challenging second. Well, the Lamborghini did. And unfortunately, the McLaren has not. This is so unfortunate.
Well, again, in turn 8, that dive, because it's a late apex, and the Lamborghini squeezed its way down the inside. It was a slightly less aggressive move. Nonetheless, the outcome was the same as we saw earlier when Charles Verts did the same on the Bentley, but that is disaster for Jota McLaren. They were in a not a safe second. Look how far back can you expect? But Ollie Wilkinson was slow.
He was a bit ponderous, wasn't he?
He was, but that's no excuse for making contact. How Marcello didn't hit the McLaren on that left rear, one will never know. And of course, Christopher Haase slips.
Well, for Christopher Haase, suddenly he's discovered Christmas isn't in December, it's in September. So he picked that off. Thank you very much. 1 position, 2 positions. Thank you. 3 positions up to second place overall. There is the contact with the tail of the McLaren. John?
I don't really. I mean, the McLaren, for once in turn 8, looked slower than I would have expected it to be. And that's no doubt why Alex Fontana thought there's a chance. Yes, I'm going to.
Yes, it's
I should have been more patient.
So let's take a look. Maro Engel leading this race now by 11.4 seconds. Christopher Haase up into second place. Raffaele Marcello into third. Alex Fontana across the start-finish line after recovering from that spin in 4th place. Alex Arca in 5th. Marcus Fingerhock in 6th. Robin Freitz, the number 30 Audi, silent through this race, works his way up to 7th. Jules Gounon in 8th. Andrea Costa in another of the Lamborghinis in 9th, and completing the top 10, Nelson Panciatici.
But I think everybody behind Alex Fontana will move up one more space before we get to the end of this race, because I'm sure that will be under the eyes of the stewards.
And Wilkinson into the pits, so clearly probably about to park that car. You're not going to come back from that with 10 minutes remaining. Don't know if there's any damage with the car. It was fairly light contact, but round it went. So there's Maro Engel, already out of turn 1. Look at the gap. It's all the way back to the Audi. Christopher Haase, who's got the Mercedes of Raffaele Marcello behind. They are 11 seconds down, as near as can be. The Lamborghini that may yet be pinged. Alex Fontana comes through in 4th. 5th, the red and grey Audi of Alex Arca. Then Marcus Winkelhock making it a very good weekend for Santalot Racing. Their Audis, John, are in 2nd and 5th and 6th at the moment.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. They didn't have the... Look, again, here is up the inside. Enrique Chavez, can he get it done coming on to pit straight? The Ferrari has the advantage, goes into the slightly more open exit, gets the acceleration. Chavez is not going to give up. He wants to get ahead of the Ferrari. He wants to sign up and conclude his deal in this category for the 21 season.
He clearly does, and quite frankly, in the pitch, you can imagine Mark Lemmer and his teammate Miguel Ramos will have mixed emotions. They'd love to see the car go past. It would be a huge celebration for them. But actually, if both cars end up off the circuit, that won't be good. But what do you want? Do you want to be racers or people who collect championships? They want to be both, but right now, clearly, Enrique Chavez is in the racers' camp.
Very much so, and I mean, he made a move, a legitimate move. Both drivers got through the final turn.
Incident between car 14 and 38 under investigation. Incident 14, 38 under investigation.
Well, that's got to be the biggest surprise of the race so far, isn't it?
There we are. So just to reiterate, the spin of the second place McLaren by the number 14 Lamborghini is under investigation. So right now, where is this move going to come? Surely it is going to come. 8.5 minutes remaining, and Enrique Chavez very much wanting to win the Pro-Am class in this race as well as the title.
Well, what Andrea Bertolini is doing, or maybe he has to do, he's doing the old trick of...
flag to car 26, track limits 3 times.
And that's Aurelian Panis, Marcus Winkelhock. But what Bertolini is doing is deliberately slowing down, going into a corner and forcing Chavez, you see, thinking about going one way. Now he can get on the throttle. Chavez is having to wait. This time, the Lamborghini is fractionally closer to the tail of the Ferrari coming down, pit straight, but not close enough to think about making a move into turn 1. But that's just playing experienced game. Slow in, quick out, just frustrate the car behind you. The danger is you might frustrate, in the case Chavez, into making a move which is a no-brainer move, and ultimately the 2 cars end up being a victim.
Yeah, I think Chavez can rule out trying to overtake in that turn 13-14 combination. He's tried it, he got alongside, and then lost ground.
Drive-through penalty to car 14, causing a collision.
Okay.
Drive-through penalty to car 14, causing a collision.
Well, the moment we expected. Alex Fontana leading the Silver Cup class. In fact, it's in his pocket, but now he's not going to pick up the full run of points. He's going to drop down the order for causing the collision that the battle for second place pitched out Ollie Wilkinson, and there 0-0-1. That's the Silver Cup position flashing on the windscreen. He's got to report to bits. He's not taking it this time around, though. Maybe the team hasn't quite got the message to him.
Well, I think the message will get through pretty quickly.
Last warning to car 89, track limits. Last warning, 89.
So that's Jules Gougnot, last warning for him. He's running in 8th place overall. Marcus Winkelhock in the 26 Audi. He's also on last warning. He's running in 6th place. They've just sort of used up their jokers in the pack, and now they've got nothing else to deal.
No, and Alex Fontana, no doubt the message has gone through. And with 6 minutes or so of the race remaining, he needs to make that drive-through penalty. There's no point saying, oh, I didn't get the message, or I thought I'd argue about it later. If we go back to this battle between Bertolini in the Pro-Am and the Pro-Am category, Enrique Chavez. And Chavez has tried pretty much everything but the experience that Bertolini has, and he's done it in a very professional way.
Yeah, it's all been absolutely no sudden changes of position in front. Mauro Engel, by the way, leading the race by a reduced margin. It's only 10.6 seconds. He's got this one in the bag, doesn't need to push too hard. Christopher Haase seems to have the measure of Raffaele Marcello for now. They're 2nd and 3rd. Alex Fontana in 4th, of course, will have that drive-through penalty to serve. That will elevate Alex Arca to 4th, Marcus Winkelhock to 5th, and Robin Freitz up to 6th. And that's a car that started stone last, 27th on the grid, that number 30 Audi.
Yeah, sometimes starting last is better than starting in the middle of a pack. You saw what happened with the middle of the pack in turn 6 on the opening lap. So that car was at the very back, and they managed to, and they're coming in. Surely this, no, he's not. He's staying out. That's strange. I thought he's got one more lap to do it before he will be in serious trouble.
Well, they could just add the time on at the end of the race. Elapsed time, of course, that's another way of doing it. But wow, now really look at this is a car on a charge. Robbie Freitz brought in this weekend and doing a great job alongside Benjamin Goethe. Benjamin They're going to start at the back for both of the races, but if they can work their way into the top 6, which they will do now when Fontana comes in, that's astonishing. But clearly Robin Freitz fancies more than that, and the move had finally been done at turn 13, but the power's down slightly sooner on the Ferrari, side by side. But the inside line for turn 1, as long as he can keep his nose there, will go to the Lamborghini. But Andrea, plenty of punch in that Ferrari down the straight, is going to be able, surely, John, to close that move off.
The only thing was Bertolini was very wide on the exit, maybe gained small advantage, but enough of an advantage to keep him ahead into turn 1. I mean, I don't know what Chavez has got to do. He's done everything in the book right now to find a way around the Ferrari, and still the Ferrari manages to cling on to claw back whatever ground it's losing.
Well, there may yet be track limits issues there. Let's take a look. John, call this move.
I mean, it's almost, you can say that's as near to side-by-side as you can get. Now, the Ferrari has run wide because the Lamborghini's coming from left to right on the racetrack, but it's by the Ferrari getting its power down, even though it's way off the racetrack, it gives them that slightly better drive off the final turn, and enough of a drive. Maybe the Ferrari is just inherently that little bit quicker in top speed anyway. I think looking back, it was.
Okay, Fontana, one more time, not going into the pit lane, so it's still running around the track in 4th place. And looking for other changes, we've got Mauro Engel leading the race now by 10.2. The gap's coming down to Christopher Haase in that 2nd place, Raffaele Marcello 3rd, Alex Fontana in 4th, but he owes us a drive-through penalty. The car in the background of the shop will be elevated to 4th place. That's the 99 Acker Audi. With Alex Acker on board, and Marcus Winkelhock will go to 5th, and Robin Freitz to 6th. So the Audis are coming good through the course of today. It's been an extraordinary meeting, John, for one manufacturer going well one day and another the next.
It's maybe a characteristic of the nature of this 4-kilometre Ricardo Thomas circuit that and teams are coming here for the first time. In many cases, most drivers have not even raced here, even in some of the junior formulas. So it's about gaining knowledge all the way through. Again, racetrack conditions are different to those that they ran on Friday and Saturday. Track is a lot more washed. Chavez looks to go up the inside into turn 2, not a place really that you're going to get much success. Then the quick flick through 3, and there's no chance to get down inside of somebody into turn 4. So you're going to have to be patient. Nothing through into turn 5, then the run up the hill into turn 6. You take your own chances up into turn 6, but if you're not close enough, then forget about it.
Right, Christopher Haase running around in 2nd place. I expected Raffaele Marcello to be able to catch him, but it's not the case. Haase is pulling away for Sansalot Racing in 2nd place. And this time around, 2 minutes on the clock, will the Lamborghini come in from 4th place? No, Alex Fontana is not interested. He's continuing a drive-through penalty hanging over his head, but he continues on the circuit in 4th place overall. So it's Engel, Haase, Marcello, Fontana in the background. We've got Acker, then behind him the blue nose, Marcus Winkelhock, with Robin Freitz with the orange flash on his Audi, trying to work her way past, but so much experience between Freitz and Winkelhock.
But here is the principal battle right now on racetrack, and that's down in the Pro-Am category between the Ferrari and the Lamborghini, and Chavez still chivying away. Cuts back to the right to get a better exit this time. Hopefully he'll get the better drive off turn 14 than the Ferrari did. But I think just that additional little straight line speed the Ferrari has, the acceleration, you can see just able to stretch out a car length or more down into turn 1, and that gives Bertolini that breathing space. Again, Chavez very late in the brakes. You can see almost overran into the apex of turn 1, didn't even get near the apex, up into turn 2.
Mauro Engel, what a quiet race he's had. He pitted before the McLaren, came out just in front when he took over from Lucas Stoltz, and well, more to the point, he was up to speed fully when the McLaren came out, but since then he's been able to stroke it clear, nobody close to challenge him.
And that was, I questioned the strategy of, what's that going around? Is that
pit stop car 163 under investigation? Pit stop car 114, no further action.
Right, which of the Audis was it? Well, it's going to be Winkelhock. Surely there'll be contact here at this point. Robin Freitz going up the inside. Was there enough inside? Well, the simple answer is, in the case of Winkelhock, no, there wasn't. At turn 11, around he goes.
And need to see that from another angle, because how far was Robin Freitz up alongside Marcus Winkelhock?
Fontana's come into the pits finally with a minute or so to go as we start the final lap, into drop out of 4th place overall. So suddenly Robin Freitz is up, but he could yet be pinged. So suddenly Jules Goulion could get up into about 5th position. But there's no doubting Mauro Engel leading the way by a country mile, 9.4 seconds. He's backed it off. Christopher Haase in 2nd, Raffaele Marcello in 3rd. It does mean Alex Arca will now go up to 4th overall.
So the back again to this battle in Pro-Am, and yet again, how close can you get to the tail of a Ferrari yet not manage to overtake it? And there's the difference in straight line performance. Chavez cannot get sufficiently close to the Ferrari to get alongside into turn 1, and from here all the way through, probably up until you get up to turn 8 is the realistic chance, next best chance you would have.
Well, not far now, round the final lap, only 2 more corners to go for Mauro Engel. Lucas Stoltz will be smiling down in the TalkSport WRT garage. They have had a really, really good run. Started from the outside of the front row. Looks though the McLaren had the legs on them, but they, as a duo, they are so, so strong. This is going to be their 3rd Sprint Cup win of the year. They won the 2nd race at Brands Hatch. They've done it again. So great run from Stoltz and Engel. They'll be about 8 seconds clear. He's backed it right off, chasing in 2nd place. Christopher Haase, he's going to take 2nd for Sansalot Racing House. Audi, and in the background Raffaele Marcello recovers, but he's starting right at the back in race number 3. He takes 3rd place. Alex Arca will come home 4th, and just behind him will be Robin Freitz, but I think there may be a penalty coming Robin's way.
Certainly that'll be investigated, whether there will be a decision against Robin Freitz or not. It depends on other camera angles. It looked like he was pretty much side by side with Marcus Winkelhock. It's very difficult to see from that camera angle that we looked at it initially, but here's the big battle that's been going on pretty much all the way through since these drivers took over their respective cars, and looks to me as if Bertolini has once again shown how much value there is in experience over out-and-out pace.
Absolutely so. So again, you didn't expect him to crack under pressure. The pressure was intense, but victory in Pro-Am on the track to the car in 19th place overall. Andrea Bertolini by a whisker, by just under half a second from Ramos, but points in the bag in the Pro-Am Championship for Ramos and Chavez. Chavez chasing all the way through the second half of that race, but it was entertaining, and certainly kept Bertolini on his toes. And you know what? If you're running down towards the tail of the field, you want a battle, and both of those really would have enjoyed that. So good to see the marshals applauding them as the cars come back home, but all the applause should go to TalkSport WRT, and from all of the crews, it's a job well done. Little fist bump to the crew there down at Barwell Motorsport 4.
And I was about to mention about 5 minutes ago, but there was so much action on the track I couldn't get it out. That was a very early pit stop for the TalkSport Mercedes, and I thought, why would they want to come in so early? But obviously they judged it, and they judged it to perfection.
They really did. Your eyebrows went up when a whole host of cars came in. We felt the front-running cars in particular would stay out right to the end of the pit window, and this, of course, came just after the second of the safety car periods. But they read the situation right. They had an exemplary pit stop. That driver change from Lucas Stoltz to Mauro Engel. And for McLaren, it didn't quite come right. They deserved to be on the podium. They should have been on the podium, but alas, with that contact that led to the drive-through penalty for Alex Fontana. Matter of interest, he came home in 18th place overall after that. But there is the classification in the Sprint Pro-Am battle, and a 15 and a half point advantage for Ross and Chavez over Pierberg and Baumann, who could have scored more. They came home 3rd in the class today, but that puncture really scuppered their chances. But outright honours, no doubt about that. It's the black and white liveried number 6 Mercedes. So happiness down at Barwell Motorsport. Miguel Ramos, 50 years old today, but it was Stoltz and Engel who won outright. Raffaele Marcello and his teammate came home in 3rd place, Timo Bogoslawski, and of course great result, run through to 2nd place for Christopher Haase in the 25 Audi, started by Leo Roussel. So Sansalot Racing very pleased with life as well with that 2nd place.
Yeah, and that was almost you could say a copybook drive from the TalkSport Mercedes-Benz team, albeit that Ben Barnicoat led all the way through until the pit stops and he handed over to Ollie Wilkinson. But that great pit stop by the Mercedes crew got the number 6 car out into the lead, and Ollie Wilkinson got tagged laps from the end by a charging Alex Fontana, and a disappointment indeed for the Jota team, who looked like there was on a definite secured podium position, albeit 2nd or 3rd.
Well, you really felt they deserved something, because of course they rebuilt their car very quickly after its incident at Brands Hatch, went out to Nürburgring the following weekend and yet didn't get to race. Ollie Wilkinson's leg didn't feel up for it, and here they should have been on the podium, but that's racing, and unfortunately for them, they're not. But just no doubting the joy there for Lukas Stoltz, tall figure with the dark hair, donning his cap, and for Mauro Engel. And for Miguel Ramos, his first concern today is to clinch the Pro-Am Championship. The second concern is to blow out 50 candles on his cake, but I think he probably enjoyed that scrap very much. So Enrique Chavez, good jump. So let's go down and hear from our winners, the man who started, Lukas Stoltz, and Mauro Engel.
Congratulations to you boys, a fantastic win. Luca, you set up a great first stint and then handed over in the pit stop at the perfect moment.
Yeah, definitely. We decided to undercut the McLaren, but yeah, the boys did a massive job in the pit. So congrats to them. It was really fast. I think it was third fastest pit stop. So big progress. Yeah, really good race for us. And then it was Mauro overtaking McLaren. It was a bit tight, but yeah, really good race for us.
And Mauro, of course, pulled out a fantastic gap. I think almost 10 seconds there.
Yeah, I think we were helped a little bit by what was going on behind, but no, big congrats and big thank you to the team. I mean, they gave us, first of all, they gave us an amazing car, handling beautifully, and then a perfect pit stop and strategy. And it was tight at the pit exit, and had a bit of oversteer and sideways action going on as we were side by side, but managed to hold it. And yeah, just really happy with the win. So yeah.
I think it's unbelievable to think about the problems you had yesterday to the progress today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big credit to the team. You know, they worked really hard. We did have quite some issues to start the weekend, but yeah, yesterday obviously qualifying and now the race, fantastic.
Well done, go and celebrate.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like the party's started already, not just in terms of their race win, but the music behind them. But it was such a scrap through the course of the race with the number 6 Mercedes, and just enjoying a brilliant battle after the pit stops. But that move, as he said, a bit of sideways action, Mauro Engel said, after he took over, and just held on as the McLaren came back on the track, and then the job was done, just stretched away thereafter, John.
Yeah, that was key to the success. Once they were ahead of the McLaren, then Mauro Engel's afternoon, or morning it is right still, was going to be a relatively trouble-free, while all behind were kicking off and all sorts of dives down the inside, contacts.
Well, let's go down and hear from a crew who got a lot to cheer about. Miguel Ramos and Enrique Chavez.
Still doing some maths, boys, but I think you're not sure at the moment. But Enrique, for goodness, that was an incredible drive that you put in and pushing so hard. And I think it's 1 point that has made the difference.
I mean, we still need 1 point, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, like I said, I did the math, but I mean, in the end, we tried everything. We tried to win because the win gave us the championship, but Ferrari was just too strong on the straights. I tried everything, side by side, braking later, but Bertolini just did an amazing job. The car was amazing. The guys did an amazing job in the pit stop as well. So let's see. We will here be fighting for the second race, and maybe we clinch the title.
Absolutely, a great way to spend your 50th birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. It is a great day, and he made a great race, so great.
Just one more race to go, and then the celebrations.
Hopefully
step by step.
Exactly.
Well done.
Thank you.
So Enrique Chavez and Miguel Ramos, and by maths, put them 1 point away from that title, and it's almost there. It's totally within touching distance.
All I will say is, don't count your chickens until you take the checkered flag.
Exactly. So let's look at the final results. 8.8 seconds to the good for Lukas Stoltz, who started, and Mauro Engel, who finished. And Leo Roussel and Christopher Haas, I sort of felt a good race was coming for Santalot Racing, but they grabbed the moment, gaining 3 places when there was a contact that tipped the McLaren out of second place. That didn't finish at all. Timo Bogoslawski, Raffaele Marcello coming through to third place, and Dennis Marshall and Alex Arca delighted they've picked up that 4th place. Great run for them. Benjamin Goethe and Robin Freitz from stone last, 27th up to 5th. That is quite a run. Completing the top 6, Petru Obarescu and Jules Gounion. So it was a race full of incident, and unusual to have as many DNFs at the end. 6 of our 27 car field did not make it to the finish, and the car that finished last in the queue there, the SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes, picked up the points for 3rd place in Pro-Am, but was held back by an extra visit to the pits for the punctures. So the drivers would have learnt a lot through that race, but when they come out this afternoon for race 2, the final Sprint Cup race of the season, track conditions will A, be warmer, and B, they'll have a bit more of experience of what it takes to race here around the circuit. It's very tight, and we saw John on the opening lap at turn 6, contact really spoilt the races for a lot of the runners in the pack.
Yes, it'll be a different race, and I think you're going to see it different because obviously the driver that starts race 1 is the second driver in. So normally we're going to see what I would call the pro drivers and the Pro-Am cars starting race 2. So it might be a little bit less frenetic than we saw in race 1 up at turn 6.
Well, let's take a look at the points in the Silver Cup. It's 95.5 points, so 14.5 points for Alex Fontana. That little penalty dropped him down the order. He could have clinched the Silver Cup in this morning's race. He's going to have to do it this afternoon, but he has that sizable advantage over Frank Bird and Ryoichiro Tomita. And Oscar Tunjo and Yusuf Ohako, you have to feel very sorry for them. Taken out on the opening lap of the race, and that was their championship hopes in the Silver Cup over for 2021 after a season in which they've driven very well indeed. So great to see the sunshine on the hills just behind the circuit here, the circuit Ricardo Tormo just outside Valencia. The weather's been very kind for us today. And in the Pro-Am class, yes, indeed, there is one more point needing to be gained by Miguel Ramos and Enrique Chavez to land the Pro-Am Cup. Valentin Pierberg and Dominic Baumann, not their fault. They picked up a puncture. They're going to be seeing if they can at least take second. They could still win the championship, but everything would have to fall their way for them to do so ahead of Ramos and Chavez in the Pro-Am class. So that's 1 down, 1 to go. Or we could say 9 down, John, and 1 to go in this 10-race Sprint Cup Series for 2021. And let's just take a look at the sprint overall. It was wrapped up at Brands Hatch by Dries van Toor and Charles Weerts, and today they picked up no points at all. Little bit of a moment there for Charles Weerts, and they didn't gather any more. Didn't need to, though, so the championship clinched with a round to go has been a big relief for them. And looking down from that incredible high shot down to the pit lane from the top of the control tower, it will be the podium ceremonies coming up next, of course. And I think for Stoltz and Engel, there's an increased satisfaction. The start of the season, they seem to pick up no finishes or a handful of points, and now they've started to win at their ease, but it has been a difficult weekend, and I think that makes this victory all the more pleasing for them. They had a real car problem yesterday. They got it sorted just in time for qualifying. They've done the rest yet again.
It's difficult to understand why they did have a car problem, because you've got a basic setup sheet for these cars, and everybody more or less operates within that, but there's variations, individual team variations. But they certainly found the key to getting the car running competitively when we went into qualifying, and then obviously here today, this morning, an exemplary drive and pit work by the TalkSport team.
Quite right. And again, it's these small margins, just that second or so found in the pits, just meant that their car was able to pull ahead of the McLaren as the McLaren came out after its pit stop, and that just made life so much easier for Mario Engel. Thereafter, with the McLaren falling back, he was able to just stretch that advantage, and Ollie Wilkinson did no wrong, but unfortunately pitched out of the race.
I still don't quite understand the McLaren in turn 8 and the point of contact with Alex Fontana looked to be slower to me at that particular point than in the previous laps that we had been able to see it into turn 8.
So points for them in a season that's been really up and down, always been quick, but they take the third place this morning. This afternoon's race is going to be much harder.
It's been it's not a weekend, it's been a year of what might have beens for the 88 ASP Mercedes. One always looks to that as the lead Mercedes, but TalkSport have done a stunning job. And Mario Engel, Lucas Stoltz, such a good partnership, doing a brilliant job here this morning. Keep saying afternoon. Feels like afternoon at the time we got up this morning.
Well, Leah Russell delighted with second place and Christopher Haase, but Mario Engel followed out by Lucas Stoltz. That's their third win of the season, and their run of the last 3 races, a second and a first at Brands Hatch and a win here. They've got their tails right up, but it has been a difficult weekend until it all came good for qualifying, and now they're starting to deliver. So the German national anthem for the drivers, but most importantly for their team, for TalkSport WRT, who really have got their grasp very firmly around the GT racing scene after coming across from a background of rallying. And so those moments up on the podium, they have the trophies, and I think they know what comes yet next, but the racing isn't over for them. We've got the final race this season this afternoon here at Valencia. And the drivers will have all learned a huge amount, John, about how to try and find and complete an overtaking manoeuvre that doesn't end up with cars off the track.
Well, some will have learned it, hopefully all will have learned it, but what will be interesting to see is that the winners of this first round of this two-race event here this weekend are going to start on pole positions. It will be Maro Engel taking up where he left off, but interestingly, he'll have Jules Gugno and the number 89 AKASP Mercedes alongside. So it may not be quite what we might call the walk around this Ricardo Toma circuit in the afternoon sprint race that we saw, or we just watched over the last few moments.
So we will get to see what unfolds, but you can be sure the second race is going to be packed with incident and hopefully some fantastic racing. But for Lucas Stoltz and Maro Engel, what a job they've done to turn around a weekend that just wasn't looking too good for them. So that is the overall podium, but more trophies, of course, to be presented. We've got the Silver Cup and the Pro-Am classes as well. And in the background, I heard the renditions of Happy Birthday to You, so presumably Miguel Ramos being feted by his team on his 50th day. So out onto the podium comes third place in the Silver Cup class. It's Jim Pla and Konstantin Tereshchenko. And then the 114 Lamborghini crew, Konsta Lapalainen and Artur Rougier, second place for them in the Silver Cup class. It was a class that really got most decimated in many ways by the incidents in the race. But no doubting the winners, and it's been a really strong run for Dennis Marshall, who kicked it off, and Alex Arca, and they finished in fourth place overall. So really their season is ending on a huge high.
Yeah, a very good drive by Dennis Marshall to get the car into position and hand it over to Alex Arca, who did, again, an excellent job. Benefited, of course, with the contact with the Lamborghini and the McLaren. Nevertheless, finished fourth overall, but win their category, and that's what they're here to do.
Absolutely so, and huge applause from the Attempto racing team below, really supporting their drivers. Podium very wet already with the champagne spray, but out comes some more awards in the Silver Cup class. This is the class for no drivers with any grading above silver, and it's always a battle within a battle.
Escuchamos en honor del equipo vencedor el himno de Alemania.
So now the German national anthem for Attempto. So that's the podium ceremony for the Silver Cup class, and the best place of those cars finished in fourth place overall. Alex Arca brought it home, Dennis Marshall kicked it off, and don't forget, it seems a long time ago, John, it was just over an hour ago they started from fourth on the grid, but with so many sort-outs on the opening lap, surviving it all was a good thing.
Yes, I mean, there was a lot of action went on in the opening lap, and on the first phase, in fact, with two safety car interventions. Then things settled down really once the pit stop window opened. Nevertheless, we had that contact between the McLaren and the Lamborghini, but don't think that required any action from race director. The cars all got underway, albeit the McLaren was a little bit slower. I'm not quite sure that was one of those reset deals for Oliver Wilkinson to get the McLaren rolling, and huge disappointment that that car should end up finishing its race back in the garage before the checkered flag was furled.
Yes, for the Brands Hatch meeting and here at Valencia so far, the pace has been clear for the Jota McLaren. It hasn't come away with the rewards it deserves. But anyhow, today, top step of the Silver Cup class, Alex Arca and Dennis Marshall. So applause to them. Job very well done on a circuit where it was very easy to make a slip up. And off they go, and we have the Pro-Am podium to follow in this fabulous autumnal sunshine. The best day of 3 here at the circuit Ricardo Tormo, just outside Valencia. A little bit of a breeze today, that's made a difference, but the humidity is lower, John. That's been the best thing of all.
Absolutely, there's a freshness in the air, and it's a lot more comfortable. It's a lot more comfortable for drivers as well. They were all dreading what Sunday was going to be. The forecast is 28 Celsius. Well, there was nowhere in that region for this 1 hour sprint. It may increase by the time we get to the start of sprint race 2.
Well, drivers coming out on the podium in 3rd place deserve more than they got in the Pro-Am class. It's Valentin Pierberg and Dominic Baumann, the SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes drivers, and Miguel Ramos and the drivers who's already out on the podium, Enrique Chavez. They pushed, they shoved, but they couldn't get through because Andrea Bertolini was staunch in his defence to win the Pro-Am class here. And out comes Louis Michiels, his long-time teammate, all smiles. He would have enjoyed that race watching from the pit garage in the second half, but Bertolini left not one gap that could be filled.
No, that was what I would call a very professional performance by Andrea Bertolini, and one I would expect from him. And Louis Michiels did his bit also in that opening stint. But staunch defence from the Ferrari, serious attack from the Lamborghini.
So that's the first Pro-Am class win this year in the Sprint Cup for Bertolini and Michiels. No wonder they're smiling behind their masks. You can just see the wrinkles around their eyes. A job well done, but also the fact, John, they had to fight for it. All the more satisfying when you've really got to just show your mettle.
Yes, I mean, that was a race. I mean, there wasn't any after you, Andrea, or any after you, Enrique. That was a proper race, and Chavez did everything he possibly could to find a way around the very experienced Andrea Bertolini. Got alongside on a couple of occasions.
Well, let's take a look at the start. It seems a long time ago. Ben Barnicoat, brilliant move away from the start of the grid. Lucas Stoltz tucked in behind, but from 5th up to 3rd place. Great move from Timo Bogoslawski. He's on the right-hand side in the Mercedes. They come down the hill. It is a bit of a hill down to the first turn, but 3 or 4 abreast for 3rd or 4th place made us suck in our breath, but Bogoslawski grabbed that 3rd position. Always clean and tidy. A few cars we expected to be running wide at turn 1. They certainly did, but it was when they came up to the top of the hill at turn 6, a couple that all went wrong, and the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes was pinged for that. Unfortunately, Silver Cup challengers Oscar Tunjo was affected, then minding his own business at the back as the cars rejoined. Alexander West, 2nd in the Pro-Am class, was suddenly pitched around and out of the race. And unfortunately, the sister car from Garage 59 limped in with damage. There were safety car periods, but they were controlled by Ben Barnicoat, and each time he pulled further clear from Lucas Stoltz, and Ricardo Feller worked his way up the order to get into 3rd place, but he had to get past Timo Bogoslawski to do just that. Had to sometimes go off the track a bit, had to work hard. And Charles Weerts gaining positions, picking off a Sansalot racing car, but then got a little bit greedy and thumped into the Bentley of Ulysses Depot. Was very sorry about that. Not as sorry as Ulysses, who lost a top 6 position there. So when the field was released again, Ben Barnicoat led away, and maybe this was a masterstroke because Lucas Stoltz was called in as soon as the pit window opened. We didn't think that was the right move at the time, but certainly the changeover was better than it was from Ben Barnicoat to Ollie Wilkinson, because when the McLaren came back onto the circuit a few laps later, unfortunately for them, the white Mercedes was just in front. But then there was this fantastic run to the end in the Pro-Am class. Bertolini just holding off the chasing, charging Chavez, and then this spin, the 2nd place McLaren tipped out of the position and unfortunately did not regain and dropped out of the race, and that made Haase move up from 5th into 2nd place. He kept it under pressure from Marcello, but it was all about Maro Engel, he was in front when all that happened behind him, and he came through to win by 8.5 seconds. Second place to Christopher Haase, third to Raffaele Marcello, and the top Silver Cup finisher, Alex Arca, coming home in 4th overall. This was the Pro-Am battle, and Bertolini just prevailed to win the class for the first time this year. Ahead of the Barwell Lamborghini. We've got plenty more to come. The final race of the season. Do make sure you join us. I think it's going to be a firecracker.